Awesome. So in this webinar, we're going to be going over application deployments with SCCM. That was requested on the last live training that we had. So this is going to be mainly run by instructor Robert. Let me go ahead and share my screen because we're going to be doing a lab that you guys can follow along with. And I'm going to go ahead and pop this open. So of course, at Server Academy, we have the courses that you guys can access and we have the labs. We do have an SCCM lab under the IT Playground. However, it's not configured exactly like we want for this webinar. So we've created a lab under Module 8 for System Center Configuration Manager. And I'm going to post that in the comments here. So if you click on that link, that will bring you to this page. And if you click on Launch Lab, that's going to open the actual lab that we'll be using in this webinar. So we're going to have to split this. We try to do an MSI and an EXE deployment all in the same webinar, and it's just too much. So today what we're going to be doing is creating an MSI package in SCCM and deploying that. And then the next webinar we'll be doing an executable. So if you guys want to follow along, we have this lab set up that you guys are seeing me load. And it's going to have all the files preloaded onto it so that you can just, get to deploying applications as fast as possible. So we have like some high-level instructions. We have the resources. And under resources, you'll see all your VMs. I think you guys all know how to use these online IT labs by now. So you can click between the different VMs. But if you guys want to click on that and go ahead and get logged into your VM so that you can follow along with what we're going to be teaching in this live training, that would be great. Also, I think we may have fixed the issue where people were not able to use their microphones. So at the end, I'm going to try and open up the webinar. Hopefully this time it's going to be working so you guys can talk. But I think with that being said, hello to everyone who's hopped on. Hello from Germany. That's pretty cool. Hi, Perry. Good to see all you guys. I see we got some people here who are pretty much attend every webinar, which is cool. Nice to see all you guys.
Well, today we're going to be talking about deploying applications in SCCM. I know there were several requests for deploying EXEs and just going through that, but we were having such a good time with MSIs, we thought we would go ahead and take care of that first. So we're gonna learn about MSIs tonight. And if you would, I don't know if everyone got a chance to log in, but that's what I'm going to do right now. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'll wait on anybody that's just trying to get on the lab. Give them a minute here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, we want to click yes there. Okay. Now, if you take a look off to the right here, you see a list of instructions. I'm going to be working, this is just an overview, not a lot of detail. So tonight we're going to be going through points 1 through 6. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our console, Configuration Manager console. And there are two ways in SCCM to create applications, and I want to show you that in here in a minute as soon as it comes up. Okay, great. So we want to click on the software libraries. For those folks out there that can follow along, software library and application management. Okay, so we can see that we can create an application. Right click on that and say create application, or you can click a package, right click on package and create package. So what's the difference between the two? Might be a good question you might ask. Well, applications are software that fully support the newer SCCM application model. Okay, and packages are more or less an older method of creating software. They still have their uses, but they just can't handle the new functionality. Now, what do I mean by new functionality? For example, let's say you want to deploy a 7-zip version 1604, which happens to be the version we're going to deploy tonight. But let's say you come 7-zip puts out a newer version, and it's version 1900. And what you can do is there's a new method called a supersedence, and this is part of the application model. So what you can do is you can set up that application to supersede or into the newer version from 1600 to 1900. And you can configure the application to uninstall or just update the current version. But that's one of the benefits of creating an application as opposed to a package. Okay, so all right, so you might ask, what is the difference between an MSI and an EXE in application deployment? An MSI it's an acronym for the Microsoft installer. It's basically the easiest because the uninstall and the install parameters are filled in automatically. Now the EXEs, this is what we're going to go over next week. It's a lot more of a challenge. And you know, MSIs are pretty easy, but EXEs, it doesn't input the install and the uninstall command. So what you have to do is you have to go out to Google and let's say you're going to be deploying google.exe. You have to go out and do searches for the install parameters, install commands, and the uninstall commands. And sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to get those parameters that you need for that command line. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, so now we are on step one. And the first thing, what I have for step one is verifying your source folders. Okay, and why is that important? When you want to deploy applications, the last thing you need is to get your versions confused or mixed up. So what you want to do is you want to have an organized source folders. And let me show you what I mean by that. Let's all click. Everybody should have the same source folders in this lab. So just go ahead and click File Explorer and click on your C drive and then click Application Management and then Software. Okay, you see I have my folders laid out. And let's go to the 7-zip, 7-zip_MSI, which tells you right off the bat it's an MSI. Now, what I have here is version 1604 and version 1900. So, but what if you had a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version? How would you structure your source folders? Simply 7Z 1604 x32 and 7Z 1604 x64. So here, the organization is key when it comes to application management deployment. So you can see what I'm doing here. This is important. So it's something, and also with a 1900 version, you have x32 and x64. So organization is something that you definitely want to look into as you're setting up your source folders. And also what's helpful, we'll just dive in a little bit to the EXE. Let me show you this, even though we're not going to be doing it, but next week. I also have these text files. And what's on these text files is there's metadata. And what's metadata? It's basically just data that you use in your deployment that is stored on the Configuration Manager database. And for example, I'll just go ahead and click this up. Just a name, and there's certain comments. It's just data that it identifies the application. It helps in organization. In other words, you have your version number and so forth. You have your install commands and uninstall commands. And I'm gonna show you all that, I promise, next week, how to get those commands and these switches next week. But let's go back. And I think we're pretty well done with that. So let's go to step 2 and get right in to creating an MSI. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to right click, for those that are going to follow along, right click on applications and just simply create application. Okay, let me get there. Okay, so here you see a Windows installer that I already told you about. That is an MSI. And right underneath there, you see location. So now you want to browse to those source folders that we already took a look at. So let's go ahead and click browse. and click your C drive and click Application Management. I'm going to try to slow down. I don't want to go too fast because everybody's following along. Software, 7-zip underscore MSI, double click, and we're going to go to 1604 and the 64-bit version this time. And what you want to do is you want to double click that 1604 X64 MSI. Just go ahead and double click it and you can see how it fills in this. Oh, okay. Here's something you got to look out for right there. See that? I have C:\\. I kind of did that on purpose because you have to have a fully qualified domain name right there. So let's go ahead and do it and do the correct thing. Click browse again and we'll go to network this time. Everyone just go along with it. And if you don't see your server, basically all you have to do is click up here in the network area here. Whoops, come on. And click //, then type your server name, which is SCCM01, and then click return. Okay, so that's how we get to our software folder. And by the way, this is, and I should have mentioned this is a shared folder. Okay, so you want to definitely share the software folder. And we can show you that real quick if you just go to properties, sharing, and you can see it's shared right there. And of course, I don't have any special permissions. It's just everyone. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. It is a shared folder. Okay, so let's go ahead and double click software and we'll go back to 7-zip underscore MSI 1604. I'll just pause a second to get everybody a chance to catch up again. Okay, double click and let's go ahead and double click it again. Okay, so it took it that time because now I have the fully qualified domain name. Okay, great. Now click next. Okay, and all this is saying is that it's a warning, and what that means is that a lot of open source software is not digitally signed, so it's not a big deal. It's just saying that it's not digitally signed. So just click yes, and that's what that's all about. Okay, so you click next again, and now we have our general information. This is the metadata. So what we want to do is we want to go back over to our shared folder, and we could have done this. We could have done this first, but I want to get you all used to moving around in these source folders. So C drive, application management, software, 7-zip MSI, 1604, and X64. And on everybody's server, you should see general information metadata.
Hey, Robert, real quick, there's some
yes,
guys
sir.
who are trying to catch up. Can you show them where that path is? The sources and application is just on the C drive, but just so that they can find it. They're trying to catch up with you.
Absolutely, no problem. Okay, so
Right,
click your C drive. Okay, on the C drive, you have application management. Okay, and here is a shared folder right there. And so I just showed you how that was shared. So everybody should be picked up on that. Okay, so double click there, software, and 7-zip underscore MSI, and 7Z 1604, and the X64 version. And here's our metadata. So go ahead and double click that. Okay, so we can close this, and what we want to do is just move this over and slide that over there. I'll wait till everybody catches up, then click this and move this over a little bit. Okay, this is very simple. All this is for the Software Center, so you can identify your software, and it gives you some comments that you're putting in. We did all that just for organization purposes, okay, you could say. Okay, so we got a name here. We'll leave that name, that's fine. So we got a comment here. 7-zip is file archiver. You just Control C. Basically, you're just cutting and pasting, that's all. Okay, so you can follow along with me on that. I'll wait for you. And do the same thing with the publisher. And software version 1604. Okay. Now, there's one thing I want to point out here. This installation program. If you recall, I said on the EXE, you will not have these parameters. This is one of the main differences between an MSI and an EXE. Okay, here, this /I, that, let me see, I want to get the right name. That parameter stands for install. Okay, and there's your MSI, and the /Q is a quiet install. So what this means is that the user is not going to see an installation of the program, and that's why you need these parameters. Okay, but with an MSI, it's pre-filled. That's what makes an MSI so easy to set up and deploy. So we're going to go through this, but there's still a lot to learn. All right, so we got install behavior. We want to change this to just install for system, and I'll explain to you why we want to change that. What that means is this deployment will run for all users, even if the user that initiates the install is not an administrator. Okay, so this is going to run, and it doesn't have to be. In other words, when this application is deployed to the software center, the user is going to deploy it, is going to install it, I should say. So that user does not have to be an administrator to install that application, where you could have it set up where only administrators install applications. Now this user can do it, and that's the way we want it. Okay, so that's good. So go ahead and click next. All right, and we're at the summary now. And click next again. And this takes a minute. Hopefully everybody will catch up, or is caught up, I should say. And we can go ahead and minimize this, the general information metadata. Okay, great. Okay, so if everyone's caught up to us, now what we want to do is click close. Wonderful.
Good place to just answer a question. So Perry's asking in the software folder which one he's supposed to click. Could you just re-show that really quick?
Okay, sure, no problem. Okay, so here we are on C:. Whoops, picked the wrong one. Sorry about that. C: application management. Okay, so just think about the course title, application management. That'll help you remember, when you get to the server, because that's what this is all about, application management. So you double click that, and you go to software. This is all shared, and then you go 7zip_MSI. Now the reason, okay, we want to deploy version 1604. Okay, that's pretty easy. But then what do you choose here? Just look at it like this. We're going to deploy 64-bit software to a 64-bit operating system. So that'll help you remember next time you go through this, which MSI to choose. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so now I believe we're on, let's see, step 3. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to right click on the application. Okay, here's our application. We just created it. Now we want to right click on the application and click properties. Okay, so here we are, 7-zip 1604x64 properties. Now I don't really care for that name so much, so I'm going to change it. And I'll show you. It's very simple what I'm going to change it to. I like to identify what software I'm deploying, so I want to put MSI there. And let's go ahead and put the x64 back. All right, so this tells us, this gives us a little bit more information. There's the application name, the version. It's an MSI. It's not a EXE, right? So, and it's a 64-bit. So that's what you want. And here's all our publisher and software version. These are from the other setup, the application setup. So that all looks good. Now, this application catalog, depending on the version of SCCM, and I want to show you how to determine that real quick. If most of you may already know this, but see this little down arrow right here? Okay, just click that and just say About Configuration Manager. And you can see our version is 1902. And let me show you here in a minute why I pointed that out. Let me go back over to what I did was I clicked, there was two screens, and I clicked back over to my property screen. Okay. All right. So if you were following along in the course, you may be at versions Configuration Manager 1910. So instead of General Information Application Catalog, this would say Software Center. Okay. And basically it's the data that's going to be put in here is going to end up in the Software Center anyway, but I'm just pointing that out to you. One of the little differences between version 1902, which is the version of Configuration Manager that we currently are running, and also a version 1910 that you will have the opportunity to upgrade to in the course. Okay, so I'm just pointing that out. So let's move on. Okay, so we have application catalog. All right, so right here, user categories. Now, what do you mean by category? Okay, let's click edit. Now, this helps in the organization. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create something called archiver, because that's what 7-zip is, right? Whoops, if I could spell right. Archiver, right? Okay, then just click OK. All right, now we got that created, and you say OK. And it pops that archiver. So it's a user category. It's an application category, I would say. And you can put documentation in there. We're not going to do that right now, but we could. Okay. So look at this icon. And why would we want to add icon? Well, when you get to the Software Center, it makes the application or the Software Center, if you have 10 or 15 different applications in there that haven't been deployed, having an icon is helpful. So if you click Browse, and let's go back to our C drive and go to your shared folder, which is, okay, where is it? Application Management and Software. Now you'll see a folder called Icons. Okay, let's double click that. Now, where did I get these icons? Well, you can get icons from an EXE, or you can use an icon, what they call an icon extractor. And you can get them, they're freeware. Icon extractor, all you have to do is right click. Let's say you got an icon extractor, you want to get some nice icons. You get some really cool looking icons if you want to, but you get this icon extractor and you tell it where the EXE or the MSI is, and it'll pull all your icons into a folder for you, which is really kind of cool. So you just double click on 7-zip and there's your icon. Okay, so that's all good. All right, so I think we're done with that now. So we want to look at these. We don't need to worry about references or distribution settings, but the next one is deployment types. Okay, so deployment type. I don't know that I had a lot of time to explain what a deployment type is, but we'll get into that probably in the EXEs portion. But anyway, here is our deployment type for the 7-zip.msi right here. Okay. And content location, there's nothing for that, and supersedence, nothing there. So right now we want to go ahead and click OK. And it takes a minute. There we go. Okay. So here we are. We have our 7-zip application fully configured, but now we need to drop down to deployment types. Everybody see this down here. Okay. And this is our deployment type. All right. So we want to right click on that deployment type and click properties. Okay, we are on step 4, configure deployment type properties. Okay. All right, so basically we want to check over some of these things right here. There's a name, MSI, that's fine. Windows installer, let's go to content. And we want to double check the location of our source file. And there's that shared folder that we talked about earlier. And let's see, we want to go to programs. And here we go. Here's our installation program. There's our /I for install, /Q for quiet install. And there's our MSI. Now look at this uninstall program. We're going to get into how to, when we get to the exe, I'm going to show you how to find the, basically that's a product code. That's what that is right there. And you can get that from the regedit. Okay, the registry editor, you have to go in there and you have to find where the installation actually installed these keys. But if you're deploying an MSI and you're setting it up, it puts all these parameters in there for you. So that's what's great about an MSI. You don't have to go hunting for them like we will next week for an exe. But don't worry, it's not going to be all that hard because I'm going to show you exactly what to do. So now we have our installation program and our uninstall program. What do you need to uninstall? Hey, you might want to uninstall the program sometime, and you can set up, you can set up an application deployment to uninstall. Okay, so at this point, let's see, we want to go to detection method, and here we are, the MSI product code, and that. Let me explain what detection method means. All right, here's what the configuration manager client. It's always talking to the distribution point. Does everybody know what the distribution point is? If you don't, I'm going to show you what that is here in a minute. But how does Configuration Manager know if this application has already been installed on the client? How does it know? Well, what it does is it goes out and looks at this product code. And there's only one product code for that version. You can see the 1604 right there. If I click on this, you would have more identification of exactly the product code for this MSI. So Configuration Manager goes to that client and asks the question: is this application already installed? Yes or no. And if it says no, well then it will deploy the software to the client. And if it's already on the client, the answer is no, and it won't deploy. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's go to user experience, and we want to be sure it says install for system. We already explained what that is, whether or not the user is logged on. Yeah, and right here we want to just change this maximum allowed runtime. Let's go ahead and change it to 15 minutes because it's not a very big program. It's not going to take long, and that's the maximum allowed runtime. In other words, how long is this application going to run before it's completed? And it's only going to take a couple minutes. Okay, so determine behavior based on return codes. And what that is that a return code could mean that some software requires a reboot. Well, this isn't the case, so we're not going to worry about return codes, but I just wanted you to be aware. And we're going to take a look at return codes here. Okay, a requirement. What is a requirement? All right, a requirement, we could set up a requirement that this deployment would be based on the version of Windows, whether it's 64 or 32-bit. Yeah, I don't know if let's just go ahead and take a look how we would do that. You could set this up. Your category would be device. Your condition would be operating system. Okay. So you can set up a requirement that's based on Windows 10, whether that software is 64 or 32. Okay, so it's going to go and it's going to configuration manager is going to look at the client and say, well, is this Windows 10 64-bit? Yeah, we want to install the software. Okay, if it's 64, if the client is running a 32-bit Windows, I mean, nobody does that anymore. But I just want to show you that there is a way that you can set up a requirement, and there's all kinds of different requirements that you can set up. So it's kind of very flexible there. Okay, and here are our return codes, and like I said, that one setting was based upon return codes. Well, that could just be a reboot. Okay, so it's no problem there. All right, so I think we are done. Now let's go ahead and click OK. Yeah, I believe that's it. And it takes a minute. Okay, we are on step 5, deploy the MSI to Windows 10 laptops collection. And I think we're doing okay on time. We still have time for questions if you have it. So what we want to do is, this is how you deploy this. This is the fun part now. Okay, we did all this work. Now we're gonna see what happens. Okay, so you want to right click on your application and click deploy. Okay, so here we are on the general screen. Everyone should be here. All right, and there's our software. Now what we want to do is we want to choose a collection. We want to choose a group of computers. In this case, I only have one computer, but we're going to deploy this software to a device. So go ahead and click Browse. And notice User Collections. We are not going to deploy this to a user collection. We're going to change that to device collection. Okay, and here's our device collection, Windows 10 laptops. So just click that and click OK. Click OK. There we go. All right, now content. Okay, now this deployment or this software has to be deployed somewhere. Okay, so we want to deploy this software to our distribution point. So click Add, and then click Distribution point. Excuse me. There, and that is our distribution point. A distribution point is a system site server role that I already told you what a distribution point is. You deploy your software to it, and we'll get into a little bit more how that happens down to the client here in a minute when we take a look at our client. But let's go ahead and click on our distribution point, and then click OK. Okay, that's great. And click Next. Everybody should have their distribution point set up, and click Next again. Okay, so here we go. Here's deployment settings and action. So what are we doing? Are we installing or are we uninstalling? We're definitely not going to uninstall, so you click Install. Now, purpose, available or required. What does that mean? Now, available means it's gonna be available in the software center, and the user or the client is going to install the software. That's what that means. And I like to we're going to pick available because I want you all to see what it looks like in the software center. Now, as opposed to required, which would just be an automatic install. We wouldn't see anything. Okay, it might be in the software center for about 1 minute, then it would automatically install, and that would be it. And that's not what we want to do. So we want to pick available. Okay, and then let's pick scheduling. And we're not going to have a schedule, so we're just going to leave that go. And user experience. Okay, we want to say display in software center. Okay, and only show notifications for computer restarts. Okay, all that means is if this software would require a computer restart, it's going to let us know about it. So we don't 7-zip doesn't require a restart, so we're not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and click Next again. And we don't need any alerts, so we're going to leave that go. And we are almost there. and click summary. Okay, so we're summary, then click next again, and it's working. All right. Now we are on step 6. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to close. All right, so now what we do, okay, we're on step 6, verify, let me read it, verify deployment from the client. And we're going to look at some of the logs, you know, what's going on this client. Is this going to be deployed or what? And I'm going to show you a couple tricks to make the deployment happen faster, which is kind of cool. So what we want to do is we want to change instruction to resources. Okay, everybody catch up with me. And then we're going to click SAW-S01-new. That's our client. Okay, so now you want to click Control-Alt-Delete. Hopefully everybody can see me all right. And click password. And click the right arrow. And we'll put the instruction back up here. Okay, so here we are. All right, let's see. Now, sometimes deployments can take a while. So there's a couple tricks that we can perform here to make this happen a whole lot faster. So over here, I want you to left click into your search bar and type CON for console, or just our control panel rather. And I want you to bring up the control panel. Now, there's a client that has been already installed called Configuration Manager Client. Now, at this point in the course, you should probably already familiar with the Configuration Manager Client and how it's installed, but probably you may not know about this little trick we're gonna use to hurry this deployment up. Okay, so here we are, Configuration Manager Client, double click, and I want you to click Actions. All right, now let's look at this. What we're going to do is we're going to run this machine policy retrieval and evaluation cycle. So what does all that mean? Okay. Now, there's something called a client agent. It's one of the components of the configuration manager. It's called the client agent. And it keeps checking the distribution point. Okay, you saw how we enabled our distribution point. It keeps checking, and it goes out and it asks, "Hey, you got any new deployments for me today?" And let's just make this personalized. Let's say the distribution point might get back and say, "Yeah, I got 7-zip. It's coming your way." So, what this is based on? Let me see if I can find it. Okay, it's based on the machine policy and retrieval, okay? And that is by default that happens every hour. So if we click this and say run now, this makes it, instead of us waiting an hour for this deployment, it's happening now. So let's go ahead and click run now. And the selected cycle will run, might take several minutes to finish. Okay, we're okay with that. It's better than an hour, right? Okay, so that's a good trick to remember. So then click OK. All right, so let's close that. Well, let's minimize it instead. Just minimize it. Now, we want to bring up CM Trace. And it's this little icon that looks like a computer right there. So just go ahead and click that. And it says, do you want to make this program the default viewer for log files? Sure, just click yes. Okay, so we want to click that little folder. And then we want to go to where the logs are. So let's click C:, and Windows, and SCCM. I want everybody to catch up with me now. And then click logs. Okay, look at all this. All right, so the first two are what we want. let's check out these logs and see if anything's going on in the background. App discovery. Let's take a look. Okay, look at this. Performing detection of app deployment, 7-zip. So it knows that it's discovered this application, okay? So something must be going on in the background. It says not discovered. Now, what that means is that the application is not already installed on this client. So it's saying, I'm detecting 7-zip, and hey, it's not installed. So that's a good sign. Whoops, I better. Okay, if your lab needs extended, just click that button down there. Okay, so we want to close this, and let's open it back up, and we want app intent eval. Let's see if there's anything on there. Okay, let's look. Yeah, I don't see a whole lot going on here. Okay, now, okay, so we don't see anything going on there. We see that one log. There's one other log file that I want to tell you about. It's called appenforce.log. And I'm going to show you that here in a minute. But what I want to do right now is I want to go ahead and open up the Software Center. So right here, you see this little computer with the disk. That's the one we want to go ahead and double click that. Now, hopefully our application is here, and there it is. Awesome. Okay, so we have our first MSI application that maybe you've never done it before, but now you have. For those that are following along, pretty cool. All right, so all you do is just click it, and let's click install. All right, so it's installing. It's not going to take long, but here we are in the Software Center, just like we set up. We have the option to install our own software. So there it did it. Okay, now let's go back to CM Trace. And remember, I told you I wanted to take a look at appenforce.log. And it's going to give us, and there it is. It only shows up after the application has been installed. So why am I bringing that up? Well, next week when we do the exe install, appenforce will be there. Okay, but in this case, the first time you install an application, it's got to already be installed, and then appenforce.log shows up. But let's take a look. So you want to double click appenforce.log and look at all this information. Starting install enforcement. Okay, there it is right there. Let's slide this over some. All right, application not discovered on the just like the other just like the app discovery log told us. Okay, and look at this. Here's a question you might have. From the deployment point, where does this client, where does it store the software? And look at that, prepared working directory, C Windows SCCM cache 1. Let's take a look at that and see if we can find that. So go down to our File Explorer, double click that, okay, and go to, I don't want to go too fast because, you know, some folks might be following along. Double click C and go to Windows because it says Windows right there, and CCM cache. Oh yeah, it wants permissions. That's fine. Just click continue. And look, there is our one folder. And guess what? There's our 1604 64-bit MSI. And basically everything that was in that folder, it deployed to the CCM cache /1. Okay, so it's something that we can take a look at and we can learn. And here we go. Here's our MSI. And executing command, there's our command line. Excuse me. Your /I and the /Q. Okay. Let's see what else. Okay. Now, process terminated with exit code 0. Excuse me. And what that means is a 0 designates a successful application installation. Okay. So at this point, I think we are done. And that's it. Okay, so I think Paul is gonna, if there's any questions, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this up.
Yeah. So that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We were gonna do EXEs also, but obviously, I mean, we're almost an hour in and we've only done MSIs. So not next week, but the week after, we'll be actually doing the actual EXE deployments. But if anyone has any questions about what you guys just saw, now's your time to ask, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. If the questions are too off topic or we just don't know the answer to them right away, we can always get back to you guys. But we'll just hang out for a second and see if you guys have any questions. Also, I have some other things, other things that I want to show you guys that are new to the platform. So I see someone's typing, so I'm just going to hang on before I do that. But I think that's going to wrap it up, guys. I'm running out of time. I got to take off. But it was cool hanging out with you guys. Thanks again, Instructor Robert, for doing that live training. That was awesome. And we will be back on, let me see, pull up my August 21st. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.